Welcome to Studio 5. Here's what's ahead on today's show.
Made my decision to lift up my hands.
Recording artist Casey J celebrates a musical milestone.
The song of my life will always be.
Malcolm D. Lee continues conversations on his new Best Man novel.
I've always loved the written word, and I fantasized about writing a novel.
And we have a look at Jurassic World Rebirth, in case you missed it.
Don't see that every day or ever.
We begin with singer and songwriter Casey J. It's a milestone year for her music career, and in celebration, she's sharing new music for the first time in 3 years.
Where you are, I wanna be. I wanna be there.
So how would you describe career-wise these last 10 years? What's it been like?
I think what I feel is almost, and we talk about this really kind of flippantly when we talk about full circle moments, but I think I've lived enough life to see the way God has started to piece experiences together, and that he hasn't wasted like a chapter or a season. And I'm now at the place where I have enough purview to see like, oh, you took something from 9th grade and brought it with something when I was 26, and then it turned into something. So I'm able to see the hand of God from like a little bit further of a perspective, which is really beautiful for me. Yeah.
Nice. Speaking of, so the single that's out now, it's called Song of My Life.
The song of my life will always be. You are good forever. You are good forever.
Is it personally inspired? Where'd it come from?
It's a couple of things. I co-wrote it with one of my closest friends and my brother, Chris House, and we are both church kids. And so we talk about what it means to come from a legacy of faith. But there's only so much that you're going to live through others. Eventually, you're going to be a part of your own legacy of faith, and what would you want to be said about you? And so I think that is sort of the lens with which we wrote the song from. But then biblically, there's a passage in 2 Chronicles that talks about them going into battle, and they sang on their way in and they sang on their way out. And the song that they sang is that God is good forever.
The song of your life will always be. He is good forever.
Indeed, indeed. So you have 3 albums behind you now?
This will be the 3rd, yeah. So we're actually breaking it into 2 parts. So it'll be The Stories We Sing, Volume 1. And then we'll do a little live situation for The Stories We Sing, Volume 2.
Well, you have shared the 5 tracks with us, so I just want to get your take on each real quick. So I'm going to give you each and get your reaction. So we open up with One Day, correct?
We started to realize that God is not just for a place with a steeple and a pew. That wherever the Spirit of the Lord is, like, that is where we want to be. And so One Day is kind of encapsulates that verse. Better is one day in your house than 1,000 elsewhere.
Song of My Life, which we've talked about, but your reaction there again.
What I love about Song of My Life, I feel like it's American worship with a passport.
Can you say that one time? Here's a promise.
I love that you get some kind of this world feel, but with the truth of the gospel.
Next, Come Take a Seat.
Oh, so I wrote this with my brother, KJ Scriven.
Come sit with me. Come sit with me. I'm your daily bread. I'm your daily bread. Say I'll be all.
So we wrote this as a sort of modern retelling of the communion table. And so it was this idea to paint a new picture or a more updated picture that includes others. That like, no, communion is for you. It's not something for you to watch and commemorate, but communion is actually something you get to take part in.
Ah, I love that. I love that. Rest in Me.
So I literally remember writing this song. I wrote this song with one of my close friends, Naomi Rain. And it was sparked from a conversation about the difference between urgency and emergency.
And last, Return.
Return is our little outlier.
Cause before I formed you, I already knew you.
It is the story of the prodigal son from the perspective of the father before he leaves. Every verse sort of tells this story, and that the father's always saying, hey, come on, you can return. You can return. And my favorite part of the prodigal son is it says when the prodigal son was afar off and the father saw him, walking that the Father began running.
How are you feeling about part 1, part 2?
So this is always, it is a testament to the fact that without the Lord, this is not possible for me. I think it's a part to kind of keep me humble. Like, hey, if I'm not with you, you will be lost or hiding or doing something else. And so what I am really passionate about, though, is, man, I'm only responsible for the obedience of the process. I'm not responsible for the product. I'm not responsible for what happens after it. What the Lord blows on is his will, his sovereignty. And so I get to kind of sit back with you guys and watch, like, okay, Lord, what are you going to do with it?
Oh, I'm waiting for you to return.
KCJ's single, Song of My Life, is available wherever you purchase your music. Her new album will premiere soon, and of course, we'll keep you updated. Still to come, we've got an extended conversation with Malcolm D. Lee on the Best Man franchise.
I felt like that The Best Man in particular would strike a chord with people, particularly with black men. That's who I wrote it for. You know, I appreciate that that it resonates with them. The images and the storytelling resonates with them, because I'm a storyteller first.
A few weeks ago, Malcolm D. Lee gave us a preview of his novel, The Best Man, Unfinished Business. We want to continue the conversation now that you can snag your very own copy of the book.
We're telling the story of these people who have evolved together, who are changing together.
We're grown now. I'm getting married, moving to Tibet.
Hold up, you said Tibet?
What? No.
What gave birth to the idea of a book series, a trilogy?
You know, once we finished with the final chapters, I said, well, you know, there is a little bit more story to tell. And I thought, well, why don't I try my hand at writing a novel?
Intimidated by it or excited by it? Well, how are you feeling?
No, not intimidated. I was excited by it for sure. I was anxious to you know, take it on, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't do it myself. So that's why I employed you know, a partner in Jane Allen. So, you know, having someone who could, you know, A, help, you know, navigate some of the waters, but B, also try to take a little bit of the burden off me, and C, have someone to bounce ideas off of was great, you know, to be able to have. So, you know, it was a collaborative effort. You know, even though like these are my characters, these are, you know, I know where I wanted to go. She helped, you know, to like articulate some certain other things about, okay, like, well, you know, and challenged me, you know, to say, okay, well, you know, I understand you want to do this, but what if you think about that? So that's always a beautiful thing, and particularly having a woman be a voice, you know, that I could bounce things off of, you know, was very was invaluable.
So how do the trilogy, how do they break up?
So the first story, or the first book, concentrates on 3 characters: Harper, Jordan, and Robin.
Right.
And each chapter, you know, goes from their respective points of view. And so we ping pong around with the 3 of them, and the other characters play a part. Their voices in it, and they make appearances and phone calls and dinners and Zoom links and things like that, and in person. And then, you know, what we're going to do is further expand that in books 2 and 3 with getting into the minds and the POVs of the other characters. By the time people get to the end of this book, they're going to be like, where's book 2? You know, because we leave them, you know, off of a cliff. We lead them to a place of you know, leaning forward. So, you know, the next book will delve into Lance's new relationship with his new wife, you know, trying to parent, you know, his you know, new career. We will also get into Murch and Candace with their children, and a little bit with Quentin and Shelby as well. And we also, again, are going to continue with Harper, Robin, and Jordan, who have a very interesting, let's see, how do I say this without giving anything away? Let's just say that the story continues between the 3 of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the final book?
The final book will wrap it all up.
I like it. Is there a friend group that you have that mirrors this group?
I wouldn't say specifically this group. I would say I've got a lot of good friends, you know, that I'm blessed to have in my life. You know, I don't have, like, you know, these groups, but I know what it feels like to have a group like that.
And why is that important? I love the friendship of this, and so do many people. Why is this important?
I don't know. I just feel like it's a reflection of, you know, the beauty of male relationships, male-female relationships, intercouple relationships. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a symptom of reality or just, you know, how I think of the world.
I'll just put it out there. My last book was not the bestseller that I thought it would be, so there. Just put it out on the table.
Well, you know what they say. Every setback is a setup for a comeback.
Which is your favorite if you had to pick iteration of this story thus far?
I think this book is very special. I think you have a lot of history that you can draw on from this book. And even if you haven't seen the history, I think it's a very good read. Jane and I feel like we've delivered a story that is rich, that is fun, that is funny, that is sexy, that is spiritually uplifting, that is complicated, emotional.
None of us are the same people we were 20 years ago. No black woman gets to where you are without great instincts. So whatever your next move is going to be, will be the right one.
When did you realize the power of the work you do in terms of storytelling?
Well, you know, it's important to me to be authentic and to have a three-dimensionality when we're talking about these characters. So, you know, when did I realize? I don't know. I felt like that the best man in particular would strike a chord with people, particularly with black men. That's who I wrote it for. You know, I appreciate that that it resonates with them. The images and the storytelling resonates with them because I'm a storyteller first.
The Best Man Unfinished Business is available wherever you get your reading material. We now come to a special moment in our show. Here's this week's Story in Pictures.
Our favorite Blue family returns to the big screen in the all-new Smurfs movie. The story has wizards Rosamel and Gargamel capturing Papa Smurf, and Smurfette leading the Smurfs on a mission into the real world to save him. Actors John Goodman and Rihanna are among the cast, helping to bring these characters to life when the film hits theaters July 18th.
And that is this week's Studio 5 Snapshot. Still ahead, we're going to bring you a look at Jurassic World Rebirth.
The sheer scale of it is actually in the simplicity of the story and the huge, sort of passionate questions it asks.
Welcome back to Studio 5. 1993 marks the beginning of the Jurassic Park franchise. Now in 2025, it's Jurassic World Rebirth.
Dr. Henry Loomis, this is Zora Bennett, our mission specialist.
Sorry, what mission?
It's been like a dream of mine to be in the Jurassic family forever.
109 Echo, take 2, pick up Echo Mark. Right, Mark.
For anyone who loves the original Jurassic films, this is the movie for you.
Oh my God.
Steven gave me a call and said, hey, you want to do another one of those?
It's called Rebirth. It harkens back to the first film. It's a survival story.
No one's dumb enough to go where we're going.
Jurassic World Rebirth is a film that questions humanity's role in the natural world, especially with scientific advancements.
What would I do with mutant dinosaurs from an accounting perspective? Is that really the question?
What I always think of when I think of the Jurassic films is you're dealing with dinosaurs that are more dangerous and terrifying than you could possibly imagine.
It's why you come to see a Jurassic film. I think you want to be scared.
On the island we're headed to, 24 species have survived there alone.
Theme park owners did experimental work. Leaving only the worst ones here.
Jurassic World Rebirth is about a special ops group that goes on a clandestine mission to recover blood samples from 3 different types of dinosaurs.
If we get this DNA, millions of lives are saved.
There's this sense of urgency about it. Let's go. It is a thriller. You are trapped on this island. Gareth can see the whole film in his mind. He's a very unique storyteller in that way.
What's going to happen under the water? It's just going to do this past you a little bit. And you're not sure. Was it just imagination?
One thing about Gareth Edwards is his understanding of visual effects is second to none. There was no fear about how he was going to create these dinosaurs.
That's what brings the excitement. You are just in a constant state of peril.
There's nothing that says dig in more than a crew that's up to here in the mangroves water, but also as the tide's coming in, that they're still shooting.
Taking boats out to like remote islands and camping out with our crew to get these naturally beautiful places.
Our locations are 11 out of 10, every single one.
There's definitely shots where you go, no, that you can only get that in a real place.
They just look extraordinary and add such texture to the film.
Everywhere you look is already seemingly iconic, and it's just sort of out of body to be finding yourself in Jurassic World. The sheer scale of it is actually in the simplicity of the story and the huge, sort of passionate questions it asks. Obviously, for anyone who loves the original Jurassic films and the films that followed, and anyone who loves the natural world, and if anyone who's curious about how we're moving forward in terms of us as humans, this is the movie for you.
It felt like a love letter to Spielberg.
I've always wanted to shoot on film. I really wanted Jurassic World Rebirth to have that naturalistic, cinematic quality.
The original Jurassic asked that brilliant question of just because we can, should we?
We've really gone back to basics to imagine yourself in this circumstance on this Jurassic island.
I know that it will bring back the wonder of seeing Jurassic for the first time.
Survival is a long shot.
Jurassic World Rebirth is in theaters nationwide right now. Welcome back to Studio 5. As you know, music helps us to bring you this show each and every week, and this week's soundtrack comes from rapper Glorilla, featuring Kirk Franklin, Kiara Sheard, Chandler Moore, and Maverick City Music. Take a listen, and you'll hear I Rain Down on Me is what's playing in my ear this week. On that musical note, we are just about out of time for this week's edition of Studio 5, so let's take a quick look at next week's rundown. A musical milestone for Lift Every Voice and Sing. We're taking you to a celebration.
Lest our feet stray from the places our God where we met thee.
For an in-depth look at the significance of the song through the eyes of scholars.
It had a more universal approach. He was part of sort of what they considered race people at that time, right? Seeing everything they did as cultural uplifts for Black Americans and for Black people. He never saw it as something separate from American culture, but something as a part of it.
We hope you'll join us for that story and so much more next week. As for this week, we've got time for just one more thing. Let's give that final word to KCJ.
I grew up with deacons lining hymns. I grew up with literally deacons coming on their knees at the beginning of service and lining. I came to him just as I was, weary, worn, and sad. I found in him a resting place, and he has made me glad. And so I got to not just hear people, but then watch them live what they sang. And I think that is one of the things that sometimes we don't get with, celebrity culture or whatever. We're putting out our representative. Like, if I'm coming here, I'm at least going to make sure my edges are laid, put an eyebrow on. You don't always get to watch people live what they sing. And so I'm thankful that I grew up in the church where I got to hear what they said, but I got to watch them live it.
KCJ, thank you. That is a great final word for this edition of Studio 5 and for this week's look at uplifting entertainment. Until next time, make time to uplift someone around you, and then please come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.